Welcome to this latest Bold Quick Take, talking to you from my rainy home city of Cleveland, Ohio. And a lot of people here, they don't give a shit what's going on in the world. They're more focused on the NBA playoffs. They're focused on the fortunes of this group of millionaires and billionaires, but these people who could give a shit about what's going on with the world. And they're very, all their hopes are hanging on the fortunes of a team of overpaid athletes. And they don't realize that this city is going to the shitter. We have awful leadership here. We don't really have, any transparency as far as what's going on with the hell's going on here. What's going on with our city's finances. We have crazy projects all the time in terms of use of public spending here. People don't care. They'll keep watching those distractions. It's bread and circuses. And I'm not the purest person to talk about this. I would say that here's a sweet speaks. He says, "Well, I give a shit." Well, you don't live here. You have to live here to know what I'm talking about. People in Cleveland don't give a fuck about anything. They're the most low, what do you call them? Low information voters, but they really do, and they embody the idea of people who are basically living with their heads in the sands, and it's just embarrassing sometimes to live here. And I do kind of wish I would move out of here, but what are you gonna do? Hey, maybe soon I will. So we're going to talk about a couple issues of the hour. I'm going to first talk about what state-owned media does, and I'm not going to tell you what channel this is yet, but and I just picked a random topic, and you tell me who this is based on bias that you could think of. So there was a hint there. I hope you missed it. You can go to the end, but Italy will be dragged into a third month of political deadlock after talks between the center-left and the Five-Star Movement over a coalition government failed to get off the ground. President Sergio Mattarella's office announced in a stalemate on Wednesday that a fresh round of consultations will be held at the presidential palace on Monday to see if the parties have other ideas for a government majority. On Sunday, just 3 days after acting Democratic Party leader Maurizio Martina had said he was willing to talk to M5S lead head Luigi Di Maio, former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi closed the door on any coalition deal with the MS5. So they're talking about basically Italy's been in a gridlock since their election. Senator Renzi stepped down as PD leader after its center-left coalition came third behind the right-wing group led by the Nationalist League that won the most seats, and the M5S, which is Italy's single largest party, following the March 4th vote. However, he still holds huge power among Democratic Party, this is Italian Democratic Party, MPs and senators, many of whom are hostile to the M5S, thanks to the ferocious criticism which it targeted the current PD government in power since 2013. So, the story itself is not what matters. What matters is, can you tell me, if you're in the audience, and I guess it's only the sweet speak, can you tell me what country's media put out that story? Okay, I'll wait a second. Tell me who put out that story about Italy. If you missed it, hey Alicia, you kind of missed it. But that story, I'll give a couple more seconds. That story came from CGTN, which is Chinese state media. Okay, CGTN, they have this logo up here. Okay, you can see it in the top left corner. Okay, then you can look at other media outlets. Let's see if we can find one juicy one that I'm sure to talk about all the time. So this is an interesting one. If you look at the headline, I promise I didn't even find this until recently. It says the Crotches, first soccer team for amputees in Gaza. It says the Israeli occupation forces took these athletes' limbs away, but not their dreams. In Gaza, so you can actually see from the top who this is. In Gaza, a group of young Palestinians founded the Crutches, the first soccer team for amputees injured during the last 3 Israeli aggressions. So they call it aggressions. They don't call it incursions. During the first weekly protests staged at the Gaza-Israel border that started last March, at least 17 Palestinians lost their legs due to gunshots by the Israeli military, which deliberately aimed at demonstrators' lower limbs and knees. Even though some of the wounds could have been treatable, the current state of medical attention in Gaza is not enough to save the limbs. Well, when you waste most of your supplies on engaging in warfare across the border, I mean, who are you supposed to blame? You should probably blame yourself. The deployment of snipers, careful planning, and significant number of injuries to the lower limbs does reflect an apparent policy to target limbs, said Omar Shakir, Israel Palestine Director of Human Rights Watch in New York, told the Chicago Tribune. But these young men in Gaza are not giving up. Losing their legs or arms in Israeli fire didn't stop them from fulfilling their dreams, and now they're given the whole world. They should say giving. So this is another one. The first one was crotches. I'm gonna make a meme out of this. The crotches should be crutches, and it should be they're giving the whole world an example of perseverance and resistance. We're not a team of disabled or special needs people. We can prove ourselves and practice all the sports we love. It was Coach Fuad Abu Ralyoun, member of the Olympic Committee, who came up with the team's idea. Ralyoun's mother is also an amputee, which made him grow interested in sports for people with disabilities. The coach began his search for a team and contacted the athletes personally, looking for logistical support. He eventually founded the Deir al-Balah Rehabilitation Association and managed to get 13 people willing to join the team. The goalkeeper is Abdul Majid Murari, who lost his right hand, but not his love for sports. That would probably suck to be a goalkeeper with one hand. We broke the occupation's momentum when we put our injuries behind us and focused on our talents. Yeah, sure. Murari told the Palestinian news outlet Ma'an. Amputee. So, if people are thinking that I'm being insensitive here because I'm talking about amputees and making fun of the writer's grammar, remember that these people are told to run towards a border fence in order to breach it. And now Telesur, which is this publication, it's Venezuelan, they're complaining that these people are getting wounded by sniper fire in their lower limbs. Now, if this had happened in Venezuela, if this had happened in, well, I can actually find it, Yeah, there was this is from May 18th, 2017, talking in the Miami Herald about snipers in Venezuela. Now, I want to make it clear. Yes, the Miami Herald is very clearly anti Maduro, but the whole point is that they had audio of these generals talking about snipers dealing with protesters here. And look, here they are firing water cannons at people. So the objective of today's short discussion, because I do have to go somewhere for a short while. By the way, 9:30 p.m. we're currently scheduled to talk with Akil Aline from Quebec concerning Korea, Iran, and also the Kanye West, which, people are now laughing at me. Oh, I thought you didn't want to talk about Kanye. Number 80 was making fun of me today. Actually, about 20 minutes ago, he was Yeah, I guess I am still talking about Kanye West, but the point is not necessarily to dump on Venezuela, which we do on this channel all the time anyway, dump on their government, but to point out that this is a publication, a state-owned publication. It's clearly biased news, Telesur is, and they're trying to make hay out of people who lost their limbs due to deliberate attempts to breach a border fence, as opposed to people rioting on the streets of their own country in Venezuela, which is where Telesur is located. And Telesur, for those of you that don't know, and I am working on a story that in some way is connected to Telesur, could be a scandal possibly related to Telesur. Yeah, Telesur is funded by the Venezuelan government. And if you watched yesterday's programming, yesterday's live stream, I'm sorry, concerning Russia Today and Tim Canova, you should know that just because a company, a news outlet is state owned, it doesn't mean that I discount what they're saying. It doesn't mean that I'm calling anybody who appears on their network a pawn or something. Because yeah, there's a few creators that I watch and listen to that appear on Russia Today. Anthony Logan, who we were joking about yesterday, and also Lionel Nation appears on it, and a number of people. That doesn't make it in and of itself biased. We read that story from CGTN, the one from before about the Italian election. There's nothing in that story in and of itself that says that you can't depend on that Chinese state-owned English news source. And I personally, I still think, regardless of that China is the biggest national security threat to the United States. And I argue with people, and people tell me, "Oh, you're full of shit. It's Iran or it's Saudi Arabia or whatever." Yeah, those countries are a threat. They're not. The biggest threat is China, without a doubt. We are basically, in terms of debt, in terms of our own cybersecurity, China is far ahead of any other threat to us. They constantly hack our networks. They constantly steal our data. They have the largest. I think they have the largest air force in the world. I'm not going to be among this pack of basically press whores who try to say, well, it's really Russia because Russia, you can see they hacked our election or whatever. No, absolutely not. If you look at who's the most powerful country in the world economically and in terms of military power, it's definitely China. So talking about this Telesur article, you can see the horrible writing quality, and they even put they put one of the tags is the crutches, right? You can see right here, the crutches, and then they say Gazan Gandhis down here. So that this is they focus almost exclusively on stories that have nothing to do with Venezuela, except when it comes to things like this. UK urged to reject unfair anti-money launder bill. So again, this is horrible grammar on an English news website. This is what I would say. Why I would say that Telesur is an awful publication. You can see here. What was this? Yeah, they just arrested some bank officials from Banesco. See here, for currency manipulation that contributes to speculation against the dollar. But the reality is that if you know anything about currencies, the government can't control the worth of the currency. I mean, they can they have been trying to artificially control the value of their currency. It hasn't worked. You got Carlos on, who's no friend of the government, saying, "Oh, it's irresponsible that there's these currency speculators and they basically drive up the inflation or whatever." No, it gets driven. If there wasn't one currency speculator, it would be somebody else. That's a reaction of the people to scarcity. It's a reaction of the people. They try to do price fixing in Venezuela. Try to do things like fixing the price of rice. fixing the price of certain toiletries or whatever. Well, what happens then? Then you have the hoarding. Then you have all of these people who basically use all sorts of smuggling networks and things like that. So you can fix the price of something. It doesn't mean that that's actually going to lead to a market that's affordable. And then you have the mega inflation. Then you have all of this crap with them having to replace the currency itself. That's how you get Venezuela. And to get back to the topic, I would say if it were not for the horrible writing that we just witnessed with Telesur, I'd be fine with people using it as at least a source that you could read and make your own judgment against. The same way that I say with China, with China's CGTN, which I think being honest, I oppose the Venezuelan government on ethical grounds. I think that they're really a government that has caused untold suffering to their people. But I know that the national security threat of China is much, much greater. In fact, China itself has basically moved in and almost owns Venezuela now. Lock, stock, and barrel. China, Russia, a couple other creditor countries, I think Iran as well. And in navigating those relationships, the moral judgment isn't really the important part. The important part is trying to read through information and figure out what you can believe and what you can't believe. And that's why when I hear people say, "Oh, we can't trust RT, they're Russian government propaganda." Well, I know that they're Russian government. I know the Russian government owns them. I do read their stuff with a bit of skepticism, but their stuff is, first of all, better quality than the crap they put on right now on CNN and on MSNBC, and in many cases better than Fox News stuff. So, if you really want people to stop watching RT, maybe make a better quality product. Put out better quality news. Then you'll get people to start watching your shit again. The second reason that I question them is that you have NPR, which is our state-owned media here. And people say, I know people who say, I trust NPR. They deliver news that's the truth. It's not biased or anything. Look, they have this podcast on it, Code Switch. So these people are being paid literally using, in part, government wages, because what does NPR always say? It's funded also by viewers like you, even though in reality they're owned by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So their entire program is about race. It's about white people being oppressive. It says when caste discrimination comes to the United States. Well, if it's caste discrimination, why is it that you have 4 black people in the photo? Then Starbucks, obviously, talking about weed. It's an entirely, and it is totally a race-based program. This one I actually agree with. Why shouldn't we pay student athletes? But my solution would be to have them not be student athletes. It would be to basically privatize the NCAA and have these colleges own their teams outright. And basically these players would be employees and they wouldn't be students. This one is, can white people use colored emojis? It says, my daughter, a very conscious 15-year-old queer white girl, has recently started using black hand emojis. Oh, Alicia. She must be laughing her ass off at this. Let me see if she's in the chat still. She says, I don't want to be ruled by China. Oh, maybe she hasn't seen it yet. We discuss race and politics all the time at home. She even listens to your podcast with me sometimes. We live in a diverse neighborhood of a diverse city. As a family and on our own, our daily lives include many friendships and interactions with POC, people of color. So question is, do I speak to her about using the emojis? And then it says, hey there, wave emoji. If your daughter is like me, she believes an emoji is worth 1,000 words. When a friend invites me over for dinner, I like to respond with a thumbs up. How else do you efficiently convey yes? What a great idea. I'm excited, but not too excited. The problem is the emoji you choose might be sending the wrong message. A text that reads as playful to one might come off as insensitive to another. We'll get into some of the reasons in a sec. There are a lot of reasons your daughter might be using black hand emojis. It sounds like she cares about the well-being of the people of color around her, and she is probably not trying to cause offense. So maybe she feels that black hand emojis better convey what she is trying to communicate, or maybe she thinks using them is a good way to show solidarity with her friends of color. But there is a problem here. When we step into the digital world, it's easy to feel like we can leave our IRL identities behind. But the power dynamics that exist in real life don't disappear just because we're hidden behind a screen. So yes, you should absolutely speak to your daughter about the implications of using emojis that don't match her racial identity. And the first step is to ask some questions. Questions like, is her use of the emojis intentional or something she just happened to want to do one day? Or, says Samantha Kemp Jackson, what are you trying to say that you can't say in the color of your own skin? Kemp Jackson, a parenting expert and writer, says kids are more open to learning when they have a voice in the discussion. She says asking your daughter about her texting habits will allow her to think more deeply about what she is doing. If your daughter believes that black skin is an inherent part of her message, she adds, then she needs to think harder about what it is about the black skin that enhances her message. Does she think her raised fist emoji looks more revolutionary when she paints it black? Her clapping hands more rhythmic, her praise hands more dramatic, her painted nails sexier? I can't read anymore of this. This is bullshit. So everybody, this is from Code Switch. I'll put it in the chat. Code Switch is paid for by viewers like you, Larry Gerke. Yeah, so that's U.S. owned media. So we have U.S. owned media, NPR, pushing complete and utter bullshit. Nobody gives a fuck about emojis. If there was a dead possum emoji, I would use it all the fucking time, and I'm not from Kentucky. No offense to other people I know who live in Kentucky, but when I hear the word Kentucky, I think of dead possums, and I would use that emoji, and I'd be proud of it, because it would express my true feelings about certain topics. And that Code Switch would dedicate a whole fucking article about this. I mean, that's what you guys pay for. And me too. It's embarrassing. I mean, are you guys embarrassed? Alicia, I hope to have you on one day. Maybe you want to join at 9:30. Let me know. We haven't had you on in a while because we're having Akil on. He's a little bit more of a, he's probably more against my point of view than you are. So we might want to have kind of a discussion talking about Korea, Iran, and also Kanye West. 9:30 tonight. So what else were we going to talk about today? Let's see, topics. So before I leave, civil liberties, when people talk about being a quote unquote libertarian, what the hell does that even mean? If you're somebody who considers themselves a libertarian, and then you believe in removing the Second Amendment or doing things like, most people think, oh, the libertarian movement is all about lower taxes, legalizing weed, and gay marriage. It turns out a lot, and then after that, a lot of people will, a little more on the conservative side of libertarianism, will talk also about dismantling the government and protecting the Second Amendment. But there are a lot of people who consider themselves libertarians that pretty much they think it stops at the weed and the gay marriage, but it doesn't. And to be honest with you, when you think about what were the original civil liberties in America, nobody gave. I mean, people talk about, oh, the founding fathers never knew that there would be muskets, right? They didn't intend the Second Amendment to include, for example, automatic weapons, which are already illegal. But let's say, or they say it wasn't intended to include AR-15s. Well, in reality, if you think about who these people were, they also didn't intend it to include gay marriage. As far as marijuana, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they were doing back then about that. A lot of them were really drunk all the time. So no, libertarianism, in my opinion, which is why I've left the designation, and I've really just embraced the fact that I'm in favor of civil liberties. I'm in favor of the free market. Okay, I don't need an ism in order to talk about that. If we are not people who stand up for civil liberties, then really our ideas are almost worthless. All of our proposals, about these cultural wars, and what I said just now about code switch, which I think it's ridiculous. They still have the First Amendment right. Doesn't mean I have to pay for it. Doesn't mean I have to have dollars coming out of my paycheck, or my taxes go to NPR. Yeah, I think that civil liberties are key to having an identity that has anything to do with libertarianism, or even liberalism back in the day. Back when I was a kid, being a liberal was considered to be in favor of civil liberties, much more so than conservatism, because our music at the time was under the threat from people like the Parent Music Resource Center, I think it was called, Tipper Gore, who was a liberal, by the way, but it was people who were further to the left, people who were not from the establishment left, who struck back against her, her bitching about, lyrics and stuff like that, and about explicit content in music and video games. The PMRC was that was an infringement on civil liberties from both the right and the left. Similarly, today, when I see a headline from USA Today that says Trump attorney Michael Cohen was wiretapped, feds intercepted call with the White House, I wonder exactly what there is to justify the wiretap of a personal attorney for, this New York City real estate mogul, and now the president, and actually what happened while he was president. So federal agents obtained a wiretap on President Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, that intercepted at least one call between a line associated with Cohen and a line at the White House, NBC reported. NBC reports the wiretap was obtained in the weeks ahead of the raid on Cohen's office, home, and hotel room last month, where investigators obtained a slew of documents, including information pertaining to a payment made to Stormy Daniels, an adult film actress and producer. The $130,000 was used to quiet her story about an alleged affair with Trump, which the president has denied. The payment is also at the center of a lawsuit by Daniels, in which she hopes to be freed from the non-disclosure agreement she agreed to just days before the 2016 presidential election. Michael Avenatti, Daniels' attorney, reacted and confirmed the news live on MSNBC, saying what investigators found is likely not going to be good news for Cohen or Trump. Well, the question isn't whether it's going to be good news. The question is whether it is illegal. Okay, and if it's not illegal and they still seized it and it was made in order to embarrass him, then the question is what exactly are we wasting the wiretap privileges of privileges? They're not rights. The federal government doesn't have a right to wiretap you or anybody else. Why are they abusing their wiretapping privileges in order to go and just embarrass people? Avenatti said investigators feared the information could be destroyed, which federal agents as a basis for obtaining search warrants to seize Cohen's property in the April raids. Last month, prosecutors mentioned the possibility of records being deleted in a federal court filing. Following 5 lines of redactions, prosecutors said, as a result, absent the search warrant, these records could have been deleted without record and without recourse for the law enforcement. The filing reads, the same court filing, while discussing the lack of privileged attorney-client communication seized, also acknowledges multiple covert warrants that monitored Cohen's email account. So they looked at his email as well, which, everybody should be scared now. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders referred questions about the wiretap to the president's outside counsel. One of Trump's attorneys, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, told the Daily Beast that he doesn't believe the reports of a wiretap, adding if it did turn out to be accurate, the wiretaps would be totally illegal. Now, I don't know about Rudy, but I'm trying to, I want somebody with authority to determine whether they're illegal or not. I'm tired of all this bullshit about not knowing or not knowing whether they're illegal. U.S. lawyers have talked about it. We don't believe it's true, Giuliani told the publication. We think it's going to turn out to be untrue because it would be totally illegal. You can't wiretap a lawyer. You certainly can't wiretap his client who's not involved in the investigation. He added the news has intensified hesitation about the possibility of Trump sitting down for an interview with special counsel Robert Mueller, who is leading an investigation about Russian meddling in the U.S. election. Lawrence Tribe, who is a huge anti-Trump snowflake, and he's a Harvard law professor, but he was the one who last year he posted an article on I think it was The Hill, where he said there were, he set out a map of how it's still possible to impeach Trump by the end of the year and install Hillary Clinton as president. It basically would have meant that Trump would have had to resign to be impeached and removed from office. Then Pence would have had to resign, and then I think the House would have had to annul the election or something. That was their answer. He said to get a warrant to wiretap Michael Cohen's phone conversations, the FBI had to comply with highly stringent rules and standards. Yeah, well, I don't know if you've been paying attention over the past few months, Lawrence Tribe, but I don't think that the procedures have been followed. It's unclear what information was uncovered during the reported wiretaps and who was on the phone during the call between Cohen's phone and a line at the White House. The new details come just hours after Trump admitted to paying Cohen for the now infamous hush payments to Daniels, whose legal name is Stephanie Clifford. Trump had previously denied knowing about the payment. The president said on Twitter Thursday the agreement was used to stop the false and extortionist accusations made by her about an affair, adding it was not at all associated with his campaign. While Trump and Giuliani, who first announced the payback on Fox News Wednesday evening, stressed that Daniels' money came from personal funds, legal analysts said it could be considered an in-kind campaign political contribution because it came right before the election. So that would make it subject to campaign finance laws, and Trump's team never reported the payment. Well, no, I mean, why would it be subject to campaign finance laws if it never went through the campaign itself? Okay, and it's through a personal attorney. It's a personal attorney who paid the money, and then you reimburse him. It's not the same thing. Sonic Studios, welcome. Can you react to my YouTube trailer live? I guess. Let me see here. Loved when Frank Zappa went on the warpath over that Tipper Gore explicit lyrics bullshit. Okay. What's this guy's name? Sonic Studios. It has to be short. Okay, 38 subscribers. Videos. Is it the same guy? Whoops. Sonic Studios, yeah. You don't have a trailer, dude. This guy has all these, let me see here. I'll at least, he says, I suck at this game. Let's watch this for a second. He's got Raft. Whoops. Second. So he's using some sort of a harpoon or grab hook with a rope to, I don't know what he's trying to get, some wooden plank or something. I don't know. Are you like some 5-year-old kid or something? Like, what's the big idea? I don't understand what the big. Okay, you have a gaming channel. Cool, good for you. Is that the reaction you wanted? Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, civil liberty is very important. Foreign media, I think, is just be a little skeptical, but don't go all out and say, they're owned by China. They can't possibly, they can't in any way tell the truth about anything. No, you can still, I mean, let's list some of them. You have the BBC, you have France, I think it's France 2. France 2 is in English. It might be somebody else. You have RIA Italia, which is funny. You watch it and it's, you know, there's no way that Italy can push their agenda through media because they just shout at each other. That's why they can never take over the world by brainwashing, because you just watch them shout at each other on screen. Then you have, you know, there is state media in Israel. There's state media over in Turkey, obviously. I forgot what their name is. I think ZDF is the one in Germany. Then you go to the Middle East. You got Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, which is in the UAE, Press TV in Iran. I think it's Al Manar over in the Palestinian territories. You know, RT especially, CGTN, Telesur. Every country has that type of state media, and you know, yes, be skeptical, but don't say, oh, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to watch Press TV because, you know, I don't watch Press TV because it's, a lot of it is kind of like boring and you know, hyperbolic or whatever. But you can't go and say, oh, it's state-owned media. Stop endorsing it or whatever. What the hell's going on out there? I gotta get the hell out of here. I'll talk to you guys later. Please subscribe. Tune in 9:30 with Akil. We'll be talking 9:30 Eastern time. That's about it. Have a great rest of your days.